Hello, I'm Liselle Sambury. I'm a young adult author, and today is a story time video all about that time I cried over Pitch Wars. So I have done one of these other story time videos before. It's over here. That one is about that time I wrote a problematic book, which is relevant to this video because that problematic book was the one that I was entering into Pitch Wars when I cried. So I thought this would be a relevant story time because I'm like 99.9% sure that the day that this is posting is the day when the author mentor match picks are being announced. And this year I am an author mentor match mentor. I'm mentoring for fantasy, sci-fi, and horror. And so I'm currently in the process of like going through submissions and like figuring out that whole thing. Today was actually the last day to submit, so I've been waiting until now to make any flow requests or anything like that. So I gotta extra comb through everything today. So I thought this would be a good day to post this on a day where people might be feeling disappointment if they weren't able to get a mentor. And so I thought this would be a really just relevant today and a time to kind of share my experience all about when I entered a mentor contest for the very first time, because that was my very first time entering a mentorship contest and didn't get in and just bawled. So let's get into it. So I will set the stage here. I had to look up the dates to figure out what dates I was doing this, because I was like, I was probably like really young when this happened. I think I must have been like 22 or something like that. I was not. I was 24. So it wasn't even that long ago. I'm 29 now. So it was a while. It was technically a while ago. It was 5 years ago. So was it 5 years? It was 2016. What year is it now? 2021. Is that 5 years ago? I'm very bad at math. Yes, it is 5 years ago. So to set the stage, when I was 22, I started to get back into writing and get back into the writing community. Because during university, I was too busy. I did not have time to write beyond doing like short stories in writing courses that I took alongside my major. And so I also did 1 year of college. So it wasn't until I was 22 that I was actually in the adult workforce, as it were. And so then I started working on that book. Again, I won't get super into that because I have a whole thing about it. But anyway, it was problematic. But it was a book about witches. Yes, I wrote a book about witches for my second book, and then I just went right back to writing witches for my third book. When you have a brand, you have a brand. So I had worked on that book. It was my first time getting critique partners. It was my first time like showing people outside of like academic creative writing my novel length work. And so it was like very stressful for me, but I worked really, really hard on this book and I got CPs, some better than others. And I was just like, I had heard so much about Pitch Wars and I was really gung-ho. I got involved in the Facebook groups for Pitch Wars. I like made friends with like hopefuls and stuff. I like made a lot of like writer friends and like connections through that. And now I like look back at like the mentors and people I was submitting to and I'm like, oh, these are people that I like don't know, but I like know of in that space now. But I was very attached to Pitch Wars. I very much felt like this was the only chance I was going to have with my book, which is incorrect. But I really at the time felt like I had built up this fantasy in my head in which I like entered my book into Pitch Wars and I got picked and I like went to the agent round and like everybody loved it and I immediately got like a superstar agent and then I like got a book deal and it was just like bang, bang, bang. I was weirdly super idealistic for that age for no reason. I'm trying to figure out where I was working in 2016. I think I was in an in-between flux, I'm pretty sure, because I would have been 24. Yes. So at 24, I was still in Toronto. I was working at a job there, but I wasn't liking it. And I was wanting to move into something different. And I was trying to, I believe, get a job up north so that I could move up here with my boyfriend and try living up north for a year. Suffice to say, I did end up moving back to Toronto, and now I'm back up north. I just like boomerang. But anyway, so it was like in that period, I had spent a year working on that book at work. Because I had so much spare time. That's why I didn't like it, because I was so bored. But yeah, I really pinned a lot of hopes. I was at a sort of flux point in my life. I had just like, I think my mom had just finished renovating the basement where I had moved in, and like I like had my own space now. I had been like living upstairs with her while it was being renovated. And I just felt like Pitch Wars was going to be my big break, and I was just going to flourish in the industry based on getting in at that point. And that was like looking back on it, I'm like, this is where you went oh so wrong. So I'm going to take a minute to soapbox a little bit here. I think especially when you are a writer early on in like your career, you're like a so-called baby writer. These pitch contests, these mentorship contests feel really, really huge, especially ones that have agent rounds, because you see these people like all these agents, like, cause you could see in Pitch Wars in like the comments, at that point, I think they have actually changed it now, but you could see all the agents that were requesting the manuscripts, and they were like, they were very visible agents. So they were very visibly big agents with like very large, like best-selling author clients. And you would see all that happening, and it felt so much like a Cinderella story. Like it felt like a mentor just like plucked you from obscurity, and then you got into this like, agent round, and then you were like a superstar on display, like you're Cinderella at the ball, and then the agent saw you from across the room and was like, I have to have you, and you just like became their client, and you immediately sold. Because a lot of times and this is like something that I didn't realize until later, from my mind's eye, every single Pitch Wars mentee always got an agent, and they always sold their book. This is incorrect. This does not always happen. But that was how I felt from what I could see in my baby writer brain, even though I was 25 years old. Not 25, I was 24, sorry. I won't age myself up. I was 24 years old and should have, I don't know, I guess I thought I should have better sense, but I like clearly didn't. People say your brain doesn't stop developing until 25, so maybe I needed the extra time. But it just like felt like that was your way to leap over all the pain of querying and cold querying, which everybody said was terrible. And so I'd really pinned a lot of hopes on it, and I was so involved. I felt like my life became Pitch Wars. Like I was waking up in the morning and I was on the Facebook group, and then I was on Twitter scrolling through all the things, and I was looking at the mentors, and I was like stalking the mentors to like pick which one I wanted to mentor, and I was putting all my materials together, and I was making friends with Pitch Wars people, and we were always just talking about Pitch Wars, and then it just like consumed everything, and I felt like it was like my entire life. And then I submitted, and I was getting full requests, and so that also like, I don't want to say I was getting full requests. I think I got one full request. I don't think I got multiples. I'm remembering in my brain, and I was so like, I was so gassed up that I felt like I must have gotten a lot of full requests, but I think I actually just got one. So, but like, still at the time, like I had a lot of friends that weren't getting any requests. So it was like a very big deal to me, and I pinned a lot of hopes on that one full request, like an unnecessary amount of hopes. And so now we're getting to the cry-a-thon. So I remember it exactly. So I was laying in my bed. I had a TV in my bedroom at that time. I later didn't, for reasons that are unclear to me. But anyway, I had a TV in my bedroom. I hooked up my Chromecast because I had my Chromecast on my living room TV. I brought my Chromecast into my bedroom. I was sitting there. I put on the live show, the Mentor live show, because they had live shows where they were like talking about like the books they were interested in and like themselves and all that. And again, I was doing everything pitch wise. So I sat up in my bed. I was watching this live show and I was like, just puttering along, la la. I also wanted to watch because the mentor that I requested my full was on it, and I wanted to obsessively watch and see if they had any hints about how they felt about my book. So I'm posted up on my bed, I'm watching this, and then at the end of the live stream, they say, and surprise, we've posted the pics early. I lost my shit. I rushed to go watch this, to go on Twitter and like I was like shaking to go on Twitter. And I looked through the list of pics and I paused and I didn't see my name. And I looked through one more time just in case I had missed my name. And then I think I did one more and I realized that I hadn't been picked, and I just like, it was just immediate waterworks. I just burst into tears and I just sat there. The live show is still going on in the background, by the way, but they know that everybody's distracted looking at the pics, but the live show is still happening. I'm just bawling because I realized I haven't gotten in, and it was just like, and even as I was doing it, I was like, this is ridiculous. I was like, you can't be crying over this. This is so ridiculous. Like, calm down. But I like couldn't. I like fully cried over it. I was so crushed. And so this is where we get to the current Liselle looking back at past Liselle moment. And I just like, I know why I was so crushed, because I had become extremely obsessive, and I had felt like I had pinned all my hopes not only on this book, which is problematic, but I pinned all my hopes on this being the way that I could get an agent. And I felt that if I couldn't get into this mentorship program, then how could I get an agent? It felt like it was the like stepping stone, you know? It felt like if I was good enough to get into this contest and like get a mentorship, then I would be good enough to get an agent. And if I couldn't even get into this mentorship, then why would I be able to get an agent? And that's really, I think, what crushed me, because I felt like this book wasn't going to go anywhere, and I had spent all this time on it, and I was just never going to realize this dream of getting an agent and getting a book deal and being a published author, and that this had been so ridiculous. And I felt like embarrassed, not even just because I was crying, but I felt embarrassed that I had done all of this and I didn't feel like I had anything to show for it. Which of course I did. I had made connections with people that I now like was in contact with that could like be future CPs, and one of them was a future CP. I'm not sure if I met my CP Jess in the first Pitch Wars or the second one, or after Pitch Wars in the Pitch Wars group. Anyway, it just like felt like it was over. And so I was just super sad about that. And so I understand in these like mentorship contests and like being a mentor now myself, I understand why it can be so heartbreaking to not get in. I understand the desperation of wanting to be like, well, what did I do wrong? Or why wasn't my book good enough? And being like, oh, I wish I could get feedback. I wish I could have something, which is why like the first year being in Adventures of Color mentorship, I sent feedback to every single person that submitted to me, which was like over 50 people. It was a mistake because a lot of people didn't even respond to the feedback I sent. And I was like, oh, maybe they don't actually care. But anyway, I understood that desperation and like the pain of not getting in. But now I have so much more knowledge around the mentorship contest and that sort of thing. And I understand that it is not the be all end all, and that you can be really successful and you could sell a book and you could become an author while never getting into a mentorship program. I did the next year with the same book. I entered Pitch Wars again. I didn't get it again, just in case you were wondering. I also entered Author Mentor Match myself. I can't remember if I entered twice or just once, but I didn't get in there either. I did get into Rev Pit, which didn't have like an agent round or anything like that. But it was really, really helpful to have that mentorship. But I think even if I hadn't, I still would have managed to find my way. So this is all to say, getting into a mentorship program does not necessarily mean that you will get an agent. I know a lot of people that get into mentorship programs that don't necessarily get an agent. It definitely doesn't mean you'll get a book deal. I know people that have had Pitch Wars or Author Mentor Match books that haven't gotten book deals. And this isn't to be like, this isn't to like be woe on mentorships. Obviously I support mentorships. I've participated in 2 of them, in the Avengers of Color mentorship and now Author Mentor Match. I just want to say that it is not a guarantee. And I think at the end of the day, something that people don't quite that it's hard when you are a starting out author to understand is that the mentorship is essentially finding a beta reader or a critique partner with a lot of experience. That's it. It is not a step up. It is not a shortcut. It is not a fast pass or anything like that. Getting a mentorship is getting an experienced CP. And it's not, because that's essentially what it is. That's what it is. And I know because it can be authors that you admire or that you really look up to or that you're really excited to work with. It can feel like it is a sort of like elevation, but it is really like a CP or a beta partnership. And you can get those on your own. It'll be harder because you kind of have to feel out different people. You don't know what experience they have versus like an author knowing that they are experienced in that field. But you can still get that experience from other people. And so not getting into a mentorship contest doesn't mean you can't make your manuscript better and get that help and get that support. It just won't come from the mentorship. And it is not a shortcut because you still have to go through the process of querying agents. You still have to send your manuscript to agents and they still have to read it and love it and want to sign with you. And then they have to go and sell it. And then when you are selling a book, it is not just about the quality of the book. It's also about the marketability. It's about the existing market. It's about what's already out there. And so if I could say to past Liselle, I would say, sweetie, it's okay. You could still do it even if you don't get into the contest. And it might not be that book that you're working on that you entered. It might be a different book, which in my case it was, and it should have been because the book I was working on was problematic. But anyway, that aside, it's just like there's so many more opportunities. And I do really wish that people would talk more about the success that you can have cold querying agents. And I do feel like when I was a baby writer, people said this and it just like floated over my head because I was so obsessed with getting into a mentorship program and I felt so strongly that that was what was going to give me the step up. But cold querying works. That is how I got my agent. My agent is a wonderful agent. She has obviously sold my book, and that was just cold querying. That wasn't through any contest. I did not contact her through PitMat or any of those Twitter pitch contests. It wasn't through a mentorship agent round. I just sent her a cold query and it worked. And cold querying works. You don't need to get into these contests. And I think especially if you know for your mental health that entering those sorts of things will be really stressful for you, skip it. Get CPs, get betas on your own and work with them to make your book better and query, because cold querying works. It still works. And I know I felt like I felt like getting into a mentorship would propel me through the slush pile, that I would just skyrocket through the slush to the top, to the forefront of an agent's mind. But at the end of the day, they still have to read the book and they still have to make time for you. And so this is all to say, mentorship programs are great. I had a great experience being mentored. It was really helpful for me in my craft. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really great experience, and they will be really great experiences. But it's not the only way, and it's not a shortcut. It's essentially the long and short of this very long segment. So that's the entire story time of that time I cried over Pitch Wars. I honestly still think back on it and I cringe, because I'm like, oh no, you poor baby, you didn't know that you could like do it without it. You know what I mean? Like, I really didn't know. I could not picture what is now my reality. And so it's so wild to think about that and look back on that as an early experience, in which, again, in my mind's eye, thought I was like 22 when this happened. I was not. I was 24. Which I guess is still young, but it doesn't feel young enough. But yeah, anyway, that was the whole thing of what, yeah, that was it. I hope that was helpful, or at least entertaining. I hope that those of you that have maybe had similar experiences are able to kind of see the light in a way and are feeling better about yourselves and your journey and your writing. Yeah, getting into a mentorship contest, not getting into a mentorship contest is not the end of your journey. You can still achieve things. So yeah, that was it. I won't repeat myself anymore. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to me already, please subscribe. I post once a week on Tuesdays, sometimes with a surprise video on Fridays. And yes, please comment about any of your experiences with mentorship contests or anything like that in the description below. Not the description below, oh my gosh, in the comments. Post in the comments about your experiences with mentorship contests and that sort of thing. If you also applied to Pitch Wars 2016, I would love to hear your experiences. I hope you didn't cry like I did. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye!